I can't say. Yes, if I had my druthers, I'd like to branch out a little bit and work with the other actors. Okay.
You know, I have to say something because with Eddie is I heard, I was talking to Eddie, I hope I get this right, but he said, you know, everybody has little challenges, everybody has different challenges in life, but Eddie kind of indicated that it's kind of a short-term memory thing, you know? I mean, it's one of those things where it really is a monumental challenge to remember lines. And some people, for some reason, it's really, really easy. For other people, for whatever reason, their brains are all wired differently. You know, some people can remember long-term things, but not short-term things. But it's not I don't think it's because Eddie doesn't work, you know, on the lines. I think he works really, really hard on getting into his role and getting into those lines. But it's just something that for some reason is incredibly difficult. And maybe because it is, the incredible amount of focus that has to go into remembering those lines brings that intensity that Eddie brings to the role. So it actually turns out to be an asset for him in terms of playing a Donald. And I think all of you would agree that Eddie brings an amazing intensity to the role of the Donald. I mean, he's just amazing. And I would also just say for me, real quick, is that, you know, obviously I'm playing a continuing character and I'm not in every show, but I look forward to going, whether I have 1 line, or 3 lines, or 5 lines, it doesn't even matter. Actors, when you first get in the business, you count lines. Like, oh, I have 3 lines, 2 lines. And it's a big deal, you know, you're upset if you don't have enough lines. But I'm at a place in my life where, first of all, being on a show where it's really character-driven and it's really about people, just getting a chance to work with incredible actors, with incredible writing, for me, I'm excited to run up to Vancouver to just do a simple little scene. But fortunately, even those simple little scenes, in fact, there's no simple little scene. Every scene is about something. Every scene has something powerful to do. And I love working with the 4 cameras. It's amazing working with digital as opposed to film. It's more fluid. There's all these cameras rolling around you. There's this greater freedom that you get, and there's a very collaborative feeling of rehearsal and really working out what you want to do. And yet, at the same time, for whatever reasons, unlike film, it seems you don't have to almost like copy a take. You know, you're not trying to have to match takes all the time. There's a lot of freedom to explore in each take and go in sometimes totally different directions. And when you're working with this group of actors, I mean, especially when I was working with James Callis, you don't know what is going to happen. And James has this particular, I don't know if he has it in his contract, but he gets to improv, you know? I mean, and maybe because he comes up with such incredible things that they just allow it, you know? But when you're working with James, you just have to be ready for anything. But like a sport, you know, that makes you better. So for me, incredible actors to work with, incredible writing makes you better, and it's what I've been living for my whole life. I was burnt out on acting for many, many years, didn't want to do it, and this opportunity to come back and work on this show and play this character with these wonderful, talented people has rekindled my fire and passion for acting. So I have a lot of thanks to give to this show, and I do.
My question is for Tomo. First I wanted to say I was incredibly impressed and wanted to give you and Grace both massive props for the work that you did and downloaded and also the subsequent work in Laid on Your Burdens. My question was, how did you feel about that turn in the storyline with faking the baby's death, and also maybe give some idea of where it's going in season 3, because I know at some point people and Sharon are going to find out that Harry's alive.
The last part you asked was, do I find out if the baby's alive? Is that what you said? Yeah, no, I think I heard the first part. I love that part of the storyline. Like it's been the, I don't know, it's been very character for sort of hero ruler storylines. It's always tumultuous, it's always all over the place, man. I sort of mentioned the other day that last season, I mean, it's the scenes that they've had in Nora and I have been great, but it almost got too much. You weren't seeing what's actually keeping these people together. Do you know what I mean? Like a couple tender moments, like why are they still in love? Or why are they in love? I know they've had a child together, they've lost a child, what have you. But I sort of mentioned that a couple times last season, and I'm really happy about the fact that this season actually they touch on that. There's some tender moments between Hilo and Google. We're not screaming at each other or running for our lives or grieving over the loss of our child. So that's cool. I mean, I think it's a well-needed part of the story. I think you just asked me what I thought about that, right? Am I getting it right? Yeah. And this season, I mean, without giving away anything, I think it's probably a safe bet. Everyone here knows that there's a good chance I'll find out that my baby's alive. Yeah. And how I'll react about that. Yeah. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Hilo's dark side. Maybe we'll see him lose his cool again. A little bit more. Maybe.
This is for Kevin? Yeah. Can you give us examples of any particularly egregious scientific errors you may have come across in your script writing, or alternatively things where a writer said, for the plot to work, this has to work, come up with some kind of justification for it?
So you're asking me to diss my writing style? There is actually something that happens in one of the first few episodes that something happens that I wrote in my notes for the review for the episode. I said, I would be remiss in my job as science advisor to point out this is impossible because A, B, and C, but owing to the high coolness factor, go for it. So, more often than not, my job is done when they don't say something than when they do say something. So, actually, until this season. So, I can't always point to say, oh, they said that because of me, or they said that because of me. But, how do I say this? I usually edit things more than I add them in, but nothing's really egregious. I mean, people are getting, like I mentioned earlier, people are increasingly scientific literate, so there's nothing super egregious. Have I had to justify anything? Yeah, there's one thing that comes up in the season that's we had the science perfect until the N-1 draft, and then something happened. I had to justify something that I saw was perfect beforehand, but it's a small thing. You may not even notice it, and I'm kind of anal that way. So, one thing that did happen recently, and it's a couple weeks ago, is one of the writers, we were talking about the very end of an episode, and there's something that really tumultuous happened, something that essentially is, the whole season up to this point leads up to one big, huge moment, and the writer asked me, how do you see this playing out? And I said, well, I see this happening, and this happening, and this happening, and then it leads to this! It's a long pause, and his way of agreeing with me was, did you realize you just spent $50,000? And then we couldn't afford it. So we kind of had to do it differently. I know this probably doesn't entirely answer your question. Does it come close?